The Democrats are relying on everybody being as ignorant as possible about the actual processes involved with how our government works. Otherwise, they would never be bodacious enough to put out the claims that they've been saying. What I'm referring to is what's going on in Texas. About 2 weeks ago, even, I put out a video saying how the Texas Democrats were going to try to start a civil war over this. For a while, they had fled the state. It was really a wild thing to unfold if you weren't paying attention to it. But eventually, they got them to come back to Texas. They got the vote through, and as you can see from the headline, Texas House passes new GOP friendly congressional maps. After a long day of debate, the Texas House of Representatives passed a Republican favored congressional map Wednesday evening that could flip five districts red by merging Democrat seats in Houston, Austin, and Dallas Fort Worth areas. What's really funny is this is exactly the reason that the Democrats have a majority of control in Illinois, New York, California, Atlanta, or I guess Georgia. The reason that Democrats are so influential in these areas is because they have their most prominent cities sectioned off as Democrat voting blocks. And while that is somewhat true for New York, LA, whatever, a lot of people in Dallas and Austin, Houston are more conservative than LA. Not so much Austin. Austin's kind of the, most liberal part of Texas. I know when I was there, it barely felt like I was in Texas. But the hypocrisy that the Democrats are being willing to put out by acting like this is just so unacceptable. It is irregular because they're doing a redrawing of the congressional maps in the middle of the decade. And I guess the tradition in Texas is usually it's about every 10 years or so they do their redrawing of the districts to try to accurately represent the population as it is at that time. 10 years is a long time for people to move and for things to change. But Democrats know that this is allowed. For them to be trying to put out the messaging, which is essentially them just assuming that you're so dumb that you would never be able to understand, they're adamant that what we are doing is just out of racism. That what we're trying to do is make it so, in their words, minority votes don't count, which is not true. Actually, a lot of the minority populations, the quote unquote minority populations, because like I will always say, white people are the minority on earth. It's a fallacy to say that we're not. But let's say that you're right, and the minorities are in a position where they may no longer have their votes counted. That would work against us. They went for Trump in a large majority, from the Mexicans to the Haitians. There was a large number of immigrants that were here that supported Trump and really everything that he stood for. I remember last year seeing a ton of videos out of Miami with all these Cubans that were just so gun ho about why socialism is bad and how you just need to be aware of that before voting for Kamala. Well, going over to Fox News, Obama calls Newsom's California redistricting move a responsible approach to GOP tactics. Now, what this is, California is attempting to do their own redistricting. What they would like to do is change the voting counts in the state so that way it can counteract Texas and really other places around the country. And right now, it seems like we are in a very cold civil war where we're fighting for a one-party state, which is not in the best interest of anybody, if you ask me. I don't like what the Democrats do. I don't like their policies. I don't like what they are. But we need to have a push and pull because both sides can go too far and we need to have a balance. So the idea that we have Newsom pushing for this redistricting, trying to counteract the Republicans, all we're doing right now is seeing who's going to be the party in control for the next few decades. I don't like it. I don't want to see that happen. I like the idea of us maybe even creating a third alternative that isn't as controlled by these, even though I know that the third alternative would turn us into a Canadian situation. It's better than a single party state, I think. I mean, both are terrible, but Canada's doing better than China. That's all I'm saying. So, former President Barack Obama on Wednesday said he respects California Governor Gavin Newsom's push for a redistricting plan to add more Democratic seats. Quote, I believe that Governor Newsom's approach is a responsible approach. He said this is going to be responsible. We're not going to try to completely maximize it. Obama said at a fundraiser Tuesday on Martha Vineyard in Massachusetts, which ironically is the place where all of this gerrymandering began. And I'll cover that really quickly just because I know some people may not be fully aware of that term and it's going to be used a lot. But then going on in the article, quote, we're only going to do it if and when Texas and or other Republican states begin to pull these maneuvers. Otherwise, this doesn't go into effect, he said. This is genuinely just political warfare, and it's a wild thing to witness. It's truly the beginning of a civil conflict, and I don't understand why more people are not aware of the history, because the people that are purposely trying to recreate it. So just real briefly, because this is a lot of information, but gerrymandering began in the 19th century. So the term originally written as gerrymander first was used on March 26, 1812 in the Boston Gazette. So it was controversial because the way that it was done essentially was trying to finesse votes out of Massachusetts. For over 200 years now, this has been something that many places have done consistently. Like I was just saying, Texas does this about every 10 years. And it's an accurate way to represent the changing population and the shifts in demographics. And while it's not traditional to do it in the middle of a cycle, that doesn't mean you're not allowed to. So if I'm playing a video game, it's not traditional to reset the video game until you beat it. But if you're having a bad run while playing Mario, maybe you reset it. Maybe it's not tradition. Maybe some people get upset about it, but it's totally allowed. Don't pretend that it's not. Don't pretend that they're committing some malicious act. And really the reason I want to hyper focus on the Democrats misrepresenting the way that this is happening is because I believe that they are subtly calling for violence. What they are doing is creating shock and awe as our political leaders, people that we are supposed to trust. These aren't just some random people on YouTube. It's not Candace Owens or Matt Walsh. It's not Joe Rogan. These are people that were elected and chosen and put into a position to speak on behalf of a large part of a population. And when they tell their local area that Republicans are committing a racist act by changing the way that the districts are working, it's only going to create violence. It's no different than when they were saying that all of the non-vax people were just going to kill your grandma. And then everybody was just screaming at me because I wasn't wearing a mask or because I wasn't vaccinated. This is the same type of approach. They are relying on your emotional reaction to the word racism. They're relying on your uneducation, so that way you aren't even aware that this is something that happens. A lot of people don't even understand what the electoral ballots are. They don't understand how Congress works. A lot of them, and maybe I should do some street interviews and really test this. I bet you most don't even know the three branches of government. They don't know who our vice president is. They're just totally and completely out of their minds. But even though you're out of your mind doesn't mean that you're not a threat. The uninformed are the biggest risk to America. It's the only way that we can centralize our culture again. We can't let movies convince us that certain ideas aren't okay. We can't let people manipulate us. Otherwise, all we're going to do is enter a new civil conflict. But it won't be like the Civil War where we just have a few like located battles like Bunker Hill. No, what we're going to have is neighborhood versus neighborhood. Because if I go to Lansing and I'm in one neighborhood, everybody in one neighborhood will have Trump Vance signs, and then I go one block over and everybody has anti-Trump flags, or if you're not an ally, stay away from me flags, or all those signs that the liberals put in their yards. It's going to become guerrilla warfare. I don't want to see us become Iran. And that is highly likely if we are not at least aware that this is not so unexpected. All right. I'm rambling. If you like my content, give me a share. It really makes a big difference. Likes and comments don't make as big of a difference, but they do help. So, drop your thoughts on this. Do you think that Texas is in the right, or do you think that we should really just back off of this and allow the cards to fall as they fall? Just to throw it out there. The Democrats asked for this by bringing in the illegals. I know I talked about this in the last video about it, but just want to say I am all for it. But yeah, what do you think? If you want to support the channel, go ahead and donate on Cash App, also Brian D exclusive. And I will see you all in the next one. Peace.